We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
No, I'm here now. I haven't spoken to this for the chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 of the 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America. Systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long. I said that over the course of the past year that the blinders have been taken off the nation, the American people. But what many Americans didn't see or had simply refused to see couldn't be ignored any longer. Those 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life opened the eyes of millions of Americans and millions of people around all over the world. It was the knee on the neck of justice, and it wouldn't be forgotten. And it's not white Americans' fault, but just a fact.
Through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good afternoon on the West Coast. Good afternoon in the mountain. Good afternoon in the Central. Good afternoon on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the reparations perspective, bringing you those ADOCS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote, socializing our suffering. In my B. Arthur's voice today, y'all. Ooh, it's getting kind of hectic. J4, this will make 8 hours for the week that I go live. And y'all know when I go live, I don't know how just to be on the line. I got to be live, like a live wire myself. Screaming and carrying on, sitting under fans, all manner of things, family. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon's rendition of your midday wake-up call, family. I'm so grateful to have you over here on As the World of ADOCS Turns. Yes, family, it's getting kind of hectic. Brian, I'm trying to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Finally, after a 500 plus year Holocaust, I am here 8 hours a week. Telling Pharaoh, get your foot up off the neck of ADOCS and unask the reparations. We are long overdue. So it may sound squeaky. It may sound like the authors. It may sound like I done puffed on a pack of Marlboros. It may sound like I sing cool jazz in the evenings. But the show must go on. The puckery must be exposed. I must tell the GR Ruth. I must tell you like a GI is. And I thank you for rolling with your sister, Bet Mass. I haven't seen you in a minute. Send me a friend request. People in the movement know where to find me. I'm incognito over in Racebook. So I can't tell you my handle here. But if you want to know how to friend me, send me a Gmail, therepperspect@gmail. Miss you, fam. I ain't seen you in a minute. Y'all know Racebook disabled me, and ScrewTube is shadow banning me, so you're probably not getting your notifications. But please do like, share, subscribe. Despite the COINTELPRO that's happening to the movement, despite them trying to silence a woman who was born to talk, despite them trying to silence the woman who was told by her God to go tell it on the mountain, despite all the puckery to silence the one who's run away from advocacy for over 50 years. You know what? You can run, but you can't hide. You know how Moses was trying to get out of stuff, right? He said, God, why are you bothering me with this assignment? You know I'm an introvert. Can't you send Aaron? Aaron was born to talk. Why me? And God said, because I chose you. This is your assignment. I've been knowing for a long time. But when life started happening to me, with my college degree and my wealth and breadth and depth of work experience across industries, God said, have you had enough? To whom much is given, much is required. So let's get into today's topic. We got a lot to uncover within 1 hour. As usual, I'm going to expose the puckery and tell you how I see it. I've got a video to share. I'll be pausing in between. Oh, my girl, a Sun Powell. Oh, my God. Well, I feel like going on when I see her up in here. She running the whole show. She won't tell y'all that. But I know the TR Ruth. So let's get on with it, because I'm going to tell you how I see it. We're going to read, because I know we don't care to read. So I read for you because I'm very animated. I think I'm very funny. I think I keep you laughing amidst all the puckery, which gives you the steam to keep going. Well, I tickle me, okay? I tickles me. All right. So I'm going to take that as I tickle some of y'all. Let's get it. Let's go. Biden and all the puckery? No. And I told y'all they're weaponizing immigration against us to ethnically cleanse ADOCS up off the very country with 3Ks that our ancestors built with their lives. I've been telling y'all that for about 300 archives. Look it up. All right. So, I was on one of my meetings yesterday, and my comrades reminded me about the Biden's administration, their plans to give Kamala's people, entry into this country, to give them citizenship before making us American, to give away our reparations and all of these class-based policies, which we know is nothing but another white wealth transfer, because when you give it all away, when you give our reparations to everybody, where are we? Still on the bottom, right? As the anchor of the country with 3Ks capitalism. So I had to go digging, because I remember them wanting H-1B visas for the money folks, like Obama. She come for money. She East Indian Brahmin caste. Oh, she used y'all, not me, for the vote. She ski weed and chucks and pearls, and 87% of our electorate ran out and said, "Oh, our first black VP. Oh my God. First Obama, now Kabama. Let us run to the polls," 87% of our electorate, "and replace a racist in office of 4 years with no record against ADOCS, with racist plural in office a combined 65 years with records against ADOCS several New York City blocks long." That's what 87% of you thought was a novel idea. Not me, not many of my comrades. So let me share with you how you've contributed to us eating the cost of slavery, from continuing to vote blue no matter damn who, from continuing to allow a corporate with 3Ks news media to convince you and to collude with a government full of benign neglect of our people. So I have to tell y'all, I have to remind you of what you've done to your people. From not playing chess, y'all still playing checkers. I've been telling y'all, none of this changes until we weaponize the only commodity we've got, our vote. Now, many of the people in the chat, they're up on game. I'm talking to the newcomers over here, the ones who will watch this later tonight. Can't make it over here on this hour because you're at work. I get it. But this is my window from court, and I got to get it in where I can fit it in too. So here we go. The Biden administration will support family-based immigration and preserve family unification as a core principle of the U.S. immigration system, which includes reducing the family visa backlog. Who does this hurt? Fill in the blank. I'm going to be like Jeopardy. Don't they pose it as a question first? Who has the highest rates of unemployment, underemployment, redlining into environmentally racist communities and tenement housing, lack of business ownership in their own communities, lack of home ownership, lack of affordable housing, a preschool to prison pipeline to continue feeding the not-so-new slavery called the private prison industrial complex? I'll give you a round of applause. I have no money to give you. As a matter of fact, like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and thank you, Miss Brenda Renee Smith. That contribution, when you couldn't even find me, touched my heart and moves me deeply in the seat of my soul. As do all of your contributions to my voice. It is an honor and a privilege to be supported by you in views and in contributions. It's an honor and privilege to speak on behalf of the ADOCS, and that you are pleased. It feels like God telling me, I am well pleased with the way you're using your big old mouth. Thank you so much. It means the world to me that you take time out of your day, because y'all know what I've been through. If you've been here since the beginning, y'all know what I've been through. And y'all ride and roll with your sister. I love y'all, black and strong. Let me finish my work, because I got a people to deliver. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden embraces his family members after the results were announced. Now, this is a last year article, but I missed it. I don't miss the puckery, but I was reminded of this on that call yesterday doing my advocacy with the CJEC California. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden will work towards providing a roadmap to American citizenship for nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants, including over 500,000 from India, and will also establish a minimum admission number of 95,000 refugees annually. This is the ethnic cleansing of ADOCS right before our eyes. This is what 87% of our electorate ran out and thought it was a novel idea to vote this into office. I don't care what you say about Trump. He wasn't replacing us. He wasn't ethnically cleansing us up off this piece. Sure, he said a few bad words about us. Did your mom ever teach you that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you? A show of hands. That's what my mama told me. But policies and legislations will get you George Floyd, 9 minutes, 29 seconds to the neck, and 181 fallen angels by the way of state-sanctioned execution since the execution of Mr. George Floyd. And a George Floyd Policing Act that they're deliberating over whether or not to exclude the only thing that matters, the end to qualified immunity. Because they made it clear they're not going to stop hiring the domestics terrorists. They care more about their First Amendment rights to be hired over our black lives. Nothing new to see here. As a largely immigrant community, but in some cases with American roots reaching back generations, Indian Americans now know firsthand the strength and resilience that immigrants bring to the United States of America. American Indians were here first. What is he talking about? That's the same way they're trying to make it seem like we're immigrants. I'm borrowing a word from the great Asun Powell. We're refugees. I'm going to leave it there until she gives me permission to expound. Stick a pin in it. He's talking about American Indians who knew the slaughter of the white inferior race civilians and soldiers, glacier donkeys. That's what they knew. Our numbers will look like theirs if we don't get involved and play chess and stop this checker nonsense. Stop this voting blue no matter damn who. All we need blue is Congress. They signing them checks for reparations in the trillions. Give the reds the top of the ticket. Third party don't stand a chance. Not when you got the Democrats still in whole primaries. Possibly an election, weaponizing the pandemic to steal elections. The jury is still out for me. Red top, blue Congress, that's my square. This is a nightmare. has done nothing for us after claiming he would have our backs like y'all had his. Indian Americans know firsthand the strength and resilience that immigrants bring to the United States of America, according to a policy document issued by the Biden campaign. Now, I also want you to know, he ain't bringing over no poor nobody. Poor blacks stay in Africa and the Caribbean, or they get deported, like the 2 planes full of Haitian children, because he can't make them white to stay in power. They got deported by ICE back to Port-au-Prince, while Long Beach City Council opened up the convention center to Central American children. The Democrats and Republicans alike create the problems overseas and then want our vote and our communities to be the solution, for them to climb right over the backs of ADOCS, to force us into 4th-class citizenship and force us to eat the cost of slavery. I know y'all tired of hearing it, but I'm here like a steady drumbeat because we get a lot of newcomers that need to understand how I contextualize the puckery. So bear with me, comrades that have been here since day one. The Biden administration will support family-based immigration and preserve family unification as a core principle of the U.S. immigration system, which includes reducing the family visa backlog, it said. This is your new America plan that excludes ADOCS. I shared about in the archive. It's coming back. This is the new America, the replacement of ADOCS with black immigrants and immigrants by and large. They're at 70 million. We're at 37 million. Our numbers are shrinking due to abortion because we can't afford to keep our kids, and state-sanctioned execution, and the preschool to prison pipeline. Hispanics popping babies out like popcorn. Everybody else can afford to populate. And the Democrats and Republicans make the ones that look close enough to their complexion with money white, while doing nothing for ADOCS social and economic justice and inclusion. But y'all keep delivering in the White House. We got one more election cycle, maybe, to get this right. Quote, and he will increase the number of refugees we welcome into this country by setting the annual global refugee admissions target to 125,000 annually. And seek to raise it over time, commensurate with our responsibility, our values, and the unprecedented global need. He will also work with Congress to establish a minimum admissions number of 95,000 refugees annually, the policy document said. Giving our ancestors heinous chattel slave labor away while disappearing ADOCS. They've neutralized us economically. Now they're coming for the vote. Why is that? Look at the timing of the reparationist movement in this all-out effort to complete a 400-plus year plan to get us out of the country. This is what Lincoln intended, to expatriate us after they used us, lynched us, stole from us, to create the wealth everyone else eats from but ADOCS, and want to scratch their balls over how we got here. Want to send out white racist tropes that the immigrants like to retort. We're shiftless, lazy, no good, and no count. When our affirmative action has become theirs.
Biden will remove the uncertainty for dreamers by reinstating the DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, and explore all legal options to protect their families from inhumane separation. While we are still waiting for a 100-plus year anti-lynch bill to be made into law for our protections, as he pivots to give Asians protections and $80.5 million of our reparations dollars to the AAPI for their COVID relief, which we're dying disproportionately from, their domestic violence, which we're dying disproportionately from, and their anti-Asian racist sentiment, 68% of which are verbal assaults, which we're dying disproportionately from. But this was a choice of 87% of our electorate, and I will never let you live it down. You have integrated our people into a burning building. And we will end workplace raids and protect other sensitive locations from immigration enforcement actions, it said. Our weed peddlers are still on lockdown in the not-so-new slavery. Their children are separated from them. Single Black mothers, robbed of opportunities, robbed of education, struggling to manage and care for their children. These are the children that are being primed to continue feeding the preschool to prison pipeline. Right now, during the pandemic, that miraculously, after Obama and no Biden, what do I call him? Biden and Kabama, miraculously, it's time to take off your mask. And all of the puckery surrounding Fauci, and this having actually been created in a lab, like I've been telling y'all. Whole nother story, it's coming. People are begging me not to speak on it. Oh, you know. When folks tell me not to touch the fire, that's exactly where I go. I'm just like a kid that way. You tell them no, that's the very thing I want to do. Biden to increase H-1B visa limit, remove country quotas for green cards. Launched by who? The Obama administration. The DACA is an immigration policy that allows some individuals with unlawful presence in the U.S. after being brought to the country as children to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation to become eligible for a work permit in the U.S. DACA recipients are often referred to as dreamers. Where'd they steal that from? The same place they stole all of their legislation that was written to benefit us under the Freedmen's Bureau. They co-opted the language dreamers from the late great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was executed because he fought for reparations those last 3 years. He wasn't executed because he wanted access to whiteness, to white toilets, and to white fountains, and to white lunch counters. That's not why he was annihilated. To be eligible for the program, recipients cannot have felonies or serious misdemeanors on the records. The Trump administration moved to end the DACA program in 2017 and was ultimately blocked by the Supreme Court from doing so this year. Yeah, the very next day, ADOCS DMV, Assam Powell, Tansy Flakes, and the rest from the Eastern Seaboard and the South were on those steps of Washington. And when they asked the NAACP why they didn't show up for our fight for the 1866 right to sue for discrimination, that year might be wrong. It was one of our civil rights. Okay? Byron Allen, that 1866 that he used to enrich himself. To my understanding, it is now harder for us to sue for discrimination. And when the DMV asked the NAACP, why weren't they on the steps fighting with ADOCS after they fought the prior day with DACA? They asked the reparationist movement why they weren't on the steps fighting for DACA the day prior. Reminds me of Biden at the top of my show when asked about reparations. He pivoted to giving all glory and all praises to the Hispanic immigrants. Biden will also, even so, his administration scaled back the program and pledged to end it, leaving thousands of the program's beneficiaries in limbo. I don't care what you say about Trump. I don't care how many mean tweets. He wasn't ethically cleansing us about this piece. He wasn't replacing us with what's happening right now. Biden will also restore and defend the naturalization process for green card holders, the policy document said. Employment-based visas, when we can't even get a job because they go to fill quotas with the white women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA and tell you affirmative action quotas have been filled. And if you needle them about how blacks aren't being hired, they'll overlook ADOCS to bring in a black immigrant. Those same black immigrants weaponize their last names and their accents to get position over us. Call me xenophobic, homophobic. I don't give a damn. I'm telling like a TI is over here. If you got a problem with it, the door. As one of my favorite political commentators used to say. I love her. Still praying for her to see the light and the error of her ways. And to come to herself. So one day we can unite again. Tell her I said so. So employment-based visas, also known as green cards, allow migrants to gain lawful permanent residence in the U.S. in order to engage in skilled work. While our men and women have the highest rates of unemployment and underemployment. I share with you often, this is for the new folks. Here in LA, according to a 2004 to 2014 Color of Wealth LA report, you can pull it up. We're 44% of the degreed. Our median income is $53,500. To Hispanics, median income of $50K, and they're only 17% of the degree. Everything I do over here is to make the case for reparations and weaponizing our vote. Welcome to the live. I can't see you right now, but I'll be there shortly. Biden, will increase the number of visas offered for permanent work-based immigration based on macroeconomic conditions and exempt from any cap recent graduates of PhD programs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields, it said. Are you hotter than fish grease yet? Because that's my goal. Because anger gets shit done. I'm here till I have no voice.
I will probably type it and use placards when the voice is done. This is a lack of our political engagement happening right before us. But we've got 4 years to get into position to move as a bloc like all the other groups do. And bind this government with a red top and a blue Congress until we can replace the lames with full-chested cash reparationists like Tamara Johnson Shealy, and until they cut the checks in the trillions over multi-generations. That's the only way to get it done when you're dealing with a neutralized, wealthless group, neutralized economic, wealthless group. You have to weaponize your vote. He will support reforming He will support first reforming the temporary visa system for high-skilled specialty jobs to protect wages and workers, then expanding the number of visas offered and eliminating the limits on employment-based green cards by country, which have kept so many Indian families in waiting for too long, the document stated. These are Kamala's people. East Indian Brahmin caste is white. That is who Kabama is. She played the race card to get y'all to run to the polls like sheeple. She played the black card. Now you can hear her referring to herself as the East Indian Asian she is, which, oh, by the way, we're 200 liquid here since that report. God knows we might be negative 200 by now. To her people's $465,000 liquid. Look it up. Commonwealth LA, 2004-2014. PDF free. The Biden administration itself will also repeal President Donald Trump's Muslim ban. President Trump had imposed a controversial travel ban, often referred to by critics as a Muslim ban, on several Muslim-majority countries, including Iran and Syria, through a series of executive orders. You have to understand, immigration helps white capital. They're not going to put immigration in charge. They're still going to be in charge. But two ways to be white, to stay in control of power in this country. You're either made white, like the Irish, Italians, and Jews, and Asians, and Hispanics, or you can afford to be white, like the wealthy Nigerians that come over here and take it over. Buy your way into whiteness or be donned with whiteness. But you still have to come for money. You can't be no broke nothing and get up in this country. They putting the gate up around the money they killed and stole from ADOCS. And the way they're doing it is with immigration. You can't fix what you're not willing to face. President Trump had imposed a controversial travel ban, often referred to by critics as a Muslim ban, on several Muslim-majority countries, including Iran and Syria, through a series of executive orders. Biden will rescind Trump's Muslim ban on day one and reverse the detrimental asylum policies that are causing chaos and a humanitarian crisis at our border, the policy document said. We're at 1242. Let me see if I can get this part in. Because it piggybacks well on this puckery of giving our country that our ancestors built away to the immigrants, to preserve white power, and to make us the permanent anchor
of this country with 3Ks capitalism. Biden to increase H-1B visa limit, remove country quota for green cards. He plans to increase the number of high-skilled visas, including the H-1B, and eliminate the limit on employment-based visas by country, both of which are expected to benefit tens of thousands of Indian professionals. Money, 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 money. Shmoney. How can ADOCS compete with that? Both of which are expected to benefit tens of thousands of Indian professionals impacted by some immigration policies of the outgoing Trump administration, with Kamala Harris as his deputy. Chucks and pearls. Let's get it, y'all. Let's get it, y'all. Chucks and pearls. Biden is expected to reverse the move of the outgoing Trump administration to revoke work permits to the spouses of H-1B visas, which had adversely impacted a large number of Indian families in the U.S. All these are part of a comprehensive immigration reform that the Biden administration plans to work on, either in one go or in separate pieces. Quote, high-skilled temporary visas should not be used to disincentivize recruiting workers already in the U.S. for in-demand occupations. Why are they in demand? Because our communities are robbed. This country has terminated 200,000 Black teachers, replaced them with white and immigrant teachers who can't even speak the King's English. To miseducate our beautiful Black babies. Once they're miseducated, like what's happening now during the pandemic, as they take care of their younger siblings, as their parents run out here and take whatever menial job they can string together to prayerfully stave off eviction after the moratorium. In neighborhoods with spotty Wi-Fi and inferior computers, they'll have a new crop of slaves for the private prison industrial complex, which many of them are shareholders. So our public school dollars are robbed from us in the Black community to give to the white public schools and the wealthier white districts for another white wealth transfer, where the white parents don't have to pay for a private school education. They're able to get a private school education with public school dollars, while our kids prepare for the social services and the other slavery, private prison. An immigration system that crowds out high-skilled workers in favor of only entry-level wages and skills threatens American innovation and competitiveness. Not with Americans, not with ADOCS, with immigrants of the Indian persuasion. According to a policy document issued by the Biden campaign. Are you hotter than fish grease yet? Let me turn up the heat. Biden will work with Congress to first reform temporary visas to establish a wage-based allocation process and establish enforcement mechanisms to ensure they are aligned with the labor market and not used to undermine wages. Then, Biden will support expanding the number of high-skilled visas and eliminating the limits of employment-based visas by country, which create unacceptably long backlogs. It said, H-1B visas, which expand the available pool of high-skilled workers in the U.S., is a non-immigrant visa that allows American companies to employ foreign workers in specialty occupations that require theoretical or technical expertise, that they're denying our children the right, the privilege. It's not a privilege, it's a right. Our ancestors paid that debt for them to be educated as a right to take over these multiple six-figure jobs. The technology companies depend on it to hire tens of thousands of employees each year from countries like India and China. Employment-based visas, also known as green cards, allow migrants to gain lawful permanent residence in the U.S. in order to engage in skilled work. Let's see what my co-hosts have to say about it. Brian says, behind white women and Hispanics, Indians are another group becoming more and more prevalent in management positions because they're being made white. That shmoney makes them white. Black Magic, I see you, family. Brian, I don't think people are seeing jab game for what it is. It's like Kamala when she said during the VP debate that she would not take the something if it were distributed under the vaccine, if it were distributed under Trump. I don't think people are seeing jab game for what it is. He's talking about the vaccine there, family. Now that Biden is in office, it's somehow the Holy Grail. And miraculously, no more, we're not dying disproportionately from COVID. We can get back to work, and there's no work for ADOCS, but they like to pretend so they can continue in their benign neglect of us to our own extinction. We'll be the numbers of the Indian. It's coming. The Native American Indians. Hassan says, this is the reflection of the weak leadership of the CBC. You know it. If you look at the CBC's website and you compare it to the Asian and other minority immigrant groups, we're the only site that's caping for all lives matter, when our lives are the only ones disproportionately being denied and deprived of. She goes on to say, AAPI gets an executive order in a year. We get a bullshit promise of having our back and a possible study of our reparations claim. Something they want $12 million for, and they want to study it into perpetuity. Okay? While giving us a survey and asking us to line their pockets at the same time. Let me give y'all that right now. I'm on a full-fledged campaign to get you guys to sign this survey, and I need you to put some language under other to ensure that we demand cash, and you can submit and not donate. They don't tell you that. I'm telling you that. So I want you under other. I want you to type the following. Copy and paste. And I need y'all to make this go viral. I'm doing this every show until we've got, critical mass participating in this. This is the part where everybody gets to be in the movement. Because if we don't, the Republicans certainly will. They will sit up here and agree with Mitch McConnell in this survey that Barack Obama was our reparations. He ain't even one of us. let's see here. Black teachers will most likely be further shut out from academic job opportunities as states, especially in the South, combat CRT, critical race theory, and the teaching of American slavery. Oh, yes. White folks will be teaching that. Immigrants will be teaching our history to our children. Ms. Powell says, immigration is America's biggest weapon against ADOCS. We're being completely erased. No access to tech fields and service industries. Rate of pay is being driven down to meet the low pay of immigrants, while 8 Democrats voted against even a $15 per hour minimum wage. Okay, so what I need you to copy and paste under other, it's split. With that said, I'm going to close us out with a video and let you see that the world supports us, family. The world sees us, and they especially see the puckery of the Democrats, who recently said America is not a racist country. I love this video, and I thank you so much, Asan, for sharing it with me. I thank you, Brian. I thank each and every one of you who text me and email me things you need me to be informed about so I can inform the masses. It means the world to me because there's so much puckery going on as the world of ADOCS turns that I can't keep up with it all. So thank you for being my eyes and ears and my boots on the ground to make the reparationist perspective a new Black media medium force to be reckoned with. You are appreciated. So let's share this incredible video that Asan shared with me. Grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you for like, share, subscribe, and supporting the channel. So let's do this. Hopefully I can get to it. How do I get over there?
The US has asked India to engage minorities on CAA and FCRA. The US is introducing a bill to probe whether Myanmar's attacks on Rohingyas constitute genocide. The US says Pakistan's attacks on minorities are hampering religious freedom. The US criticizes Turkey for restricting the rights of minority groups. The US calls out Beijing for suppressing Christians, Uyghur Muslims, and Tibetan Buddhists. The US tags Russia as a country of particular concern. There are also Vietnam, Eritrea, Iran, Nigeria, North Korea, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, all countries of particular concern. And this happens every year. A quasi-judicial body called the USCIRF, or the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, publishes an unwarranted report, binds it with a claim of independently assessing and unflinchingly confronting threats to fundamental rights. It lampoons countries, schools them on equality, and speaks not a word on fundamental rights in America. What about the plight of minorities in the US? What about the rampant racism? Again, a stoic silence, which only goes on to indicate two possibilities. Number one, America thinks it is above all. Number two, the American truth is too bitter to confront. The crisis runs too deep for those sitting in America to dig it up annually. US President Joe Biden was recently asked his views on racism. He said, and I'm quoting, "I do not think America is racist, but I think the overhang from all the Jim Crow and before that slavery have had a cost." His deputy said the same. America's first Black vice president, Kamala Harris, said this: "I don't think America is a racist country, but we also do have to speak the truth about the history of racism in our country and its existence today." Now, first of all, these statements contradict themselves. Why say something so assertively only to follow it up with a but? As for the truth, here it is. America has one of the worst records in the world on minorities. No matter what its leadership tells you, the country is systematically racist, and we will show you that on this episode of Gravitas Plus. Hello and welcome. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and tonight I argue that racism in America is a reality. Let's begin with history. Between 1525 and 1866, 12.5 million people were kidnapped from Africa. They were bundled up like cargo, and many of them were shipped to what we today know as the United States of America. And nearly 2 million Africans would die in transit. For the 10.7 million who survived this transatlantic slave trade, life would become a living hell. On reaching America, they were shackled, enslaved, forced to work in sugar fields. Men, women, and children fell to the ground and died on the plantation fields. Slaves were whipped, beaten, burnt, mutilated, raped. So does America have a racist history? Yes, it does. Fast forward a few years, a civil war and secession. US President Abraham Lincoln freed all slaves. The date was the 1st of January, 1863. The decree read, "All persons held as slaves are and henceforth shall be free." 2 years later, on June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger told the slaves of Galveston, Texas, that they were officially free. The day is now known as Juneteenth. The National Museum of African American History and Culture calls it America's Second Independence Day. The United States celebrates Juneteenth every year. But what exactly do they celebrate? There is racism in policing. Black people make up 13% of America's population, but they account for 28% of those killed by police in 2020. There is racism in the criminal justice system. 1 in every 10 black men in his 30s is in jail on any given day. Youth of color make 2/3 of the youth detained. There's still housing discrimination. There is still banking discrimination. Blacks and Hispanics face extra challenges in getting home loans. In 2015, 27.4% of black applicants and 19.2% of Hispanic applicants were denied mortgages. There is still educational discrimination. Nearly 72.4% of black students attend a high poverty school. In comparison, it's 31.3% for whites. Then there's workplace discrimination. A black graduate is more likely to be unemployed. But there are certain jobs where people of color are overrepresented, the lowest paying ones, like food servers, porters, barbers, tailors, dry cleaning workers, concierges, chauffeurs, agricultural workers. In 2018, an average black worker earned just 62% of an average white worker. There is also wealth inequality. African Americans own just 1/10 the wealth of white Americans. There is health disparity. In 2017, 10.6% of African Americans were uninsured. Why do 11 in every 1,000 babies born to black Americans die when the national average is 5.8? And then there are hate crimes. Anti-black bias was behind 27% of the hate crimes in 2019. Some of these crimes are committed by white men in uniform. Let's look at some recent incidents. You're all familiar with these words, the last words of George Floyd. He choked to death after a white police officer knelt on his neck. What was Floyd's fault? He was suspected to have used a counterfeit $20 bill, $20. In March this year, 42-year-old Andrew Brown was shot during an attempted arrest. What was his fault? No one knows. In 2020, 41-year-old Daniel Prude died in New York. He was specially abled. He had no arms on him. But the cops detained him with spit hood. He died of asphyxia because of physical restraint. What was his fault? He was running naked through the streets in a light snow. In 2014, 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot by a white police officer. 12 bullets were fired. Brown lay dead on the streets of St. Louis for 4 hours. No one knows what happened. The cop was never charged. Brown's death gave birth to the Black Lives Matter movement. As we speak, police in the US is 3 times more likely to fatally shoot a black man. If this is not racism, what is? America has failed to practice equality at home, but it is preaching to the world. Now we come to the question, why is America so racist? Number one, it has legacy. And number two, the legacy has now become political. There are 2 major parties of America, the Democrats and the Republicans. African Americans mostly vote for the Democrats. the whites for the Republicans. Barack Obama was the first black man in the White House. His election was seen by many as a national atonement for the sin of slavery, but race also became one of Obama's biggest failures. Under his administration, the percentage of Americans who believed racism was on the rise doubled. Incidents of racism rose too. It was under the Trump administration, not the Obama administration, that lynching was finally declared a federal crime. But that doesn't clear Trump of anything. He played the white supremacy card, whipped up nationalism, made Proud Boys prouder, and sent troops to fight the Black Lives Matter movement. Joe Biden promised to heal the nation, but few months in office, and he says America is not even racist. Can you solve a problem without acknowledging it? I started by showing you some headlines. I'll end by showing you some more. Cases of mental health are rising in the US because of racism against Asian Americans. Minority children in America are lagging behind even in full-time classroom learning. The pandemic has affected more Black Americans compared to their white counterparts. Domestic extremism has become mainstream and could threaten American life for 20 years. Half of all US minority-owned small businesses could not afford rent in April. The United States of America is among the 10 worst countries for racial equality. And yet the US thinks it has the moral high ground to school others on minority affairs. It has none. And with that, I rest my case.
Well, family, I've got to try to squeeze this story in. I didn't know lynching was a federal law under Trump. Did y'all? I went straight to look it up, y'all. House makes lynching. House makes lynching. Don't matter without the Senate. A federal crime. 65 years after Till. 65 years after 14-year-old Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi, the House has approved legislation designating lynching as a hate crime under federal law. The bill, introduced by Illinois Representative Bobby Rush and named after Till, comes 120 years after Congress first considered anti-lynching legislation and after dozens of similar efforts were defeated. The measure was approved 410-4 on Wednesday. The Senate unanimously passed virtually identical legislation last year, although that bill wasn't named for Till. Never knew this. President Donald Trump is expected to sign the bill, which designates lynching as a federal hate crime punishable by up to life in prison, a fine, or both. Rush, a Democrat whose Chicago district includes Till's former home, said the bill will belatedly achieve justice for Till and more than 4,000 other lynching victims, most of them African Americans. Till, who was Black, was brutally tortured and killed in 1955 after a white woman, who later rescinded her deadly accusation, accused him of grabbing her and whistling at her in a Mississippi grocery store. The killing shocked the country and stoked the civil rights movement. Quote, "The importance of this bill cannot be overstated," said Rush. I don't know how important it is. It hasn't spared Black lives from state-sanctioned execution. From Charlottesville to El Paso, we are still being confronted with the same violent racism and hatred that took the life of Emmett and so many others to this day. The passage of this bill will send a strong and clear message to the nation that we will not tolerate this bigotry. It has. Forgive me, family, I get parched. Representative Benny Thompson, Democrat in Mississippi, who represents the area where Till was abducted and murdered, called the anti-lynch bill long overdue, but said no matter the length of time, it's never too late to ensure justice is served. Justice is being served. I didn't even know this had passed. Till she just told me. Oh my goodness. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Democrat in Maryland, used similar language to urge the bill's passage. It is never too late to do the right thing and address these gruesome, racially motivated acts of terror that have plagued our nation's history, he said, urging lawmakers to renew our commitment to confronting racism and hate. None of this matters if you're not enforcing it. The bill was unanimously supported by Democrats, 3 Republicans, Louise Gohmert of Texas, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, and Ted Yoho, sounds like an Asian to me, of Florida, opposed the bill in Asian form, along with Independent Representative Justin Amash of Michigan. Gohmert said he supported the bill's concept, but preferred that those accused of lynching in Texas be tried in state court, where they could face the death penalty. He said he could support the bill's concept, but preferred that those accused of lynching in Texas be tried in state court, where they could face the death penalty. How does that happen without you outlawing lynching? Texas outlawed lynching. Cops are being held accountable when they execute us with impunity. I hope they have a very broad definition of lynching. It's far more than just strange fruit swinging from poplar trees. It's knees on necks, it's batons, it's spit hoods, it's tasers, it's Massey said he opposed the expansion of federal hate crime laws. A crime is a crime and all victims deserve equal justice, he said in a statement. So we've been getting equal justice when these race soldiers, these domestic terrorists that are hired on purpose to execute us by state sanctions, the families get justice in those cases? I hardly ever even see any indictments. Most of the time they say the execution of ADOCS is reasonable and necessary. The execution of unarmed ADOCS is reasonable and necessary. That's what I often see. Has someone seen otherwise? Share it in the chat. I don't know this to be the facts. Especially, where's Massey from? In Kentucky. Isn't that where they executed Breonna Taylor while she was sleeping in her own home? I don't know what this fool is talking about. This is what I mean about all the ball scratching and the benign neglect and the Jedi mind tricks. Adding enhanced penalties for hate tends to endanger other liberties such as freedom of speech. Which is the same argument they use to hire these kind of domestic terrorists and to elect these kind of domestic terrorists. They hire them on the police force and they elect them into office. Democratic Representative Karen Bass of California, who chairs the CDC at the time she did, called lynching a lasting legacy of slavery. Make no mistake, lynching is terrorism, she said. While this reign of terror has faded, the most recent lynching in the U.S. happened less than 25 years ago. Are these people really in charge? Did they not read the same FBI report I read in 2016 that said domestic terrorists are being hired on every police department throughout the country? Don't they know that lynching is more than just strange fruit swinging from poplar trees? Or is it just me? Am I the only one, and the comrades and the people that follow my channel, are we the only ones that can reasonably deduce that all of it qualifies as lynching? Ergo, it's happening every day, not 25 years ago. What the hell is she sipping? She needs to put the scissor down. Although Congress cannot truly rectify the terror and horror of these acts, Bass said a legislative body that once included slave owners and KKK members will belatedly stand up and do our part so that justice is delivered in the future. You've got descendants of slave owners and members of the KKK. You're doing business with them every day on the Hill. What are you talking about? They're on the police force. What are you talking about? Oh my God. Democratic Senators Kamala Harris of California and Cory Booker of New Jersey applauded House passage of the bill, which mirrors legislation they co-sponsored in the Senate along with Senator Tim Scott, Republican, South Carolina. The three are the Senate's only Black members. We're down to two now. Kabama's seat was filled by a Hispanic out here in California, thanks to Governor Newsom. Lynchings were horrendous, racist acts of violence, Harris said in a statement. Far too long, Congress has failed to take a moral stand and pass a bill to finally make lynching a federal crime. This justice is long overdue. It means nothing without enforcement and a broad definition. Booker called lynching a pernicious tool of racialized violence, terror, and oppression, and a stain on the soul of our nation. While Congress cannot undo lynching's irreparable damage, we can assure that we as a country make clear that lynching will not be tolerated, Booker said. Congress has failed to pass anti-lynching legislation nearly 200 times, starting with a bill introduced in 1900 by North Carolina Representative George Henry White, the only Black member of Congress at the time. Kristen Clark, president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, said passage of the anti-lynching legislation marks a milestone in the long and protracted battle against white supremacy and racial violence in our country. The bill makes clear that lynchings occupy a dark place in our country's story and provides recognition of thousands of victims of lynching crimes, including Emmett Till and many others, Clark said. This is still going on. Okay, I'm going to do for the next segment, family, I'm going to dig up whatever they claim Trump passed, because I didn't even know this was law. Furthermore, I've got to really dig into what is in there. What's up, Trey X? I see you, Sasha Dale Reed 360. I saw another love in here. Where's my other love? Shannon Kim, I see you, my love. Yeah. I got to do some research. That just was, Spirit said, go see. Y'all know I fly by the seat of the Spirit, which is why y'all don't ever get all of what I intend. But I do roll it over. I get to it eventually. With that said, family, I got to go back to court so I can make enough shekels to hold on to my condo. I love y'all Black. I love y'all strong. I hope to see you back for your anti-Black racism report at 6 p.m. Oh, you know I'm going in. We're finishing up that rich story I started yesterday. Mm-hmm. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. Or you just come back at 6 p.m. and I'll fill you in. Peace. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.